September 15th, 1951, 2:37 a.m. Joe Louis knocked on Bumpy Johnson's door. The Brown Bomber, the greatest heavyweight champion in boxing history. The man who'd defeated Max Schmeling, defended his title 25 times, became an American hero. Standing on Bumpy's doorstep at 2:37 in the morning, looking broken. Bumpy opened the door, saw Joe's face, and knew immediately. This wasn't a social call. "Joe," Bumpy said quietly, "come in." Joe Louis walked into Bumpy's Harlem brownstone, took off his hat, sat down at the kitchen table like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. Mamie, still in her nightgown, made coffee without being asked. She'd seen desperate men before. Joe Louis looked like he'd gone 12 rounds with life and lost every one.
Bumpy sat across from him, waited. Joe Louis wasn't the kind of man you rushed. Finally, Joe spoke. His voice was rough, tired. "I need help." Bumpy nodded. "What kind of help?" "The kind only you can give." Joe took a sip of coffee. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from shame. "I'm broke, Bumpy, completely broke. The IRS says I owe them $500,000. They're threatening to put me in prison if I don't pay." Joe Louis, the man who'd earned millions in the ring, the man who'd lived like a king, broke. "How?" Bumpy asked. "Bad investments, bad managers, bad decisions. I trusted people I shouldn't have trusted, gave money to friends who never paid me back, bought things I didn't need to impress people I didn't like. And the government. They say I owe taxes on money I already spent, money I gave away, money I lost. They don't care. They want their cut. And if I don't pay, I go to prison." Bumpy leaned back in his chair. "How much do you actually have?" "Nothing," Joe's voice cracked. "I've got nothing. My houses are mortgaged, my cars are leased, my jewelry's been sold. I'm living off charity and the goodwill of friends who are tired of lending me money." "So why are you here?" "Because I've got one more fight, one last chance to make enough money to pay off the IRS and stay out of prison." Joe pulled out a contract, slid it across the table. "I'm fighting Rocky Marciano, October 26th, Madison Square Garden. If I win, I get enough to clear my debts. If I lose, I'm done, finished. Prison or poverty, those are my options." Bumpy picked up the contract, read it carefully. His face darkened. "Joe, this contract is garbage." "What do you mean?" "You're getting 30% of the gate. Marciano's getting 50. The promoters are getting 20. That's illegal?" "No, but it's theft. You're the draw. You're the legend. People are paying to see you, not Marciano. You should be getting 60% minimum." Joe shook his head. "I don't have leverage. I'm old. I'm broke. I'm desperate. They know it, so they're taking advantage." Bumpy kept reading. His finger stopped on a clause. "Joe, did you read this?" "I read it. Do you understand what this means?" "It means if I lose, I have to fight 2 more times, for the same promoters, at the same split. Why would you agree to this?" "Because I need the money now. If I don't fight, I go to prison next month. This contract keeps me out of prison. It also keeps you in slavery." Joe looked at Bumpy with tired eyes. "I know, but what choice do I have? That's why I'm here. You asked what kind of help I need. I need you to make sure this fight is fair. Make sure the judges aren't bought. Make sure the ref isn't paid off. Make sure I actually have a chance to win. And if you can't do that, I need you to make sure my family is taken care of when I'm gone." Bumpy stared at Joe Louis. This man, this hero, reduced to begging for basic fairness. It made Bumpy's blood boil. Who else knows about this contract? My manager, the promoters, Jim Norris, Frankie Carbo. Bumpy's jaw tightened. Frankie Carbo, the mob's boxing fixer. Of course. Carbo's involved? He's always involved. Bumpy stood up, walked to the window, looked out at Harlem sleeping. "Joe, I'll help you, but not the way you're asking." "What do you mean? You're not fighting under this contract." "Yes, I am. I already signed it. Contracts can be renegotiated. Not this one.
Bumpy, these are powerful people. Jim Norris owns Madison Square Garden. Frankie Carbo controls half the boxers in America. I can't fight them. You can't. I can. Why would you do this for me? Because you're a hero, not just to black people, to everyone. You fought for this country in World War II. You donated your fight purses to the war effort. You broke barriers. And now those same people are robbing you blind while you're down. That's not right. Joe's eyes watered. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just train. Get ready to fight.
Let me handle the rest. How? Bumpy smiled. The same way I handle everything, with pressure, leverage, and consequences.
September 16th, 1951, 10 a.m. Bumpy walked into Jim Norris's office at Madison Square Garden. No appointment, no warning, just walked past security like he owned the place. Norris looked up from his desk, shocked. "Mr. Johnson, this is unexpected." Bumpy sat down uninvited. "We need to talk about Joe Louis." "What about him?" "Your contract. It's exploitative. It's also legal. Legal and fair are two different things." Norris leaned back. "Mr. Johnson, with all due respect, this is none of your business. Joe Louis is my business. He's Harlem's hero, and you're treating him like a chump." Norris smiled coldly. "Joe signed the contract willingly. Nobody forced him. You took advantage of a desperate man. That's not force, but it's close."
"What do you want?" "A new contract. 60-40 split in Joe's favor. No slave clauses. No mandatory rematches." Norris laughed. "That's not happening."
Then the fight doesn't happen. You can't cancel the fight. Joe needs the money. He'll fight anyway. Will he? Bumpy pulled out a letter, handed it to Norris. Norris read it. His face went pale. "This is a letter from Joe Louis' doctor. It says Joe has a heart condition, that he's not medically cleared to fight, that any promoter who forces him into the ring is liable for his death." Norris looked up. "This is blackmail. This is protection. Joe Louis is a national treasure. If he dies in that ring because you pushed him to fight when he wasn't healthy, you'll be destroyed. Legally, publicly, financially. But Joe doesn't have a heart condition. Are you sure? Because if he dies in that ring, this letter becomes evidence."
"Evidence that you knew he was sick and made him fight anyway. You'll go to prison for manslaughter." Norris's hands clenched. "What do you really want?" "I told you. Fair contract. 60-40. No slavery clauses."
And you fire Frankie Carbo from this fight. He's not involved in this fight. Liar. Carbo controls the refs, the judges, probably Marciano's corner too. You fire him or I go public with what I know. Norris stared at Bumpy. "You're bluffing. Try me." The silence stretched. Finally, Norris spoke. "I'll renegotiate the contract, 60-40 in Joe's favor, but I can't fire Carbo." "Why not?" "Because if I cross him, I'm dead." "Then we have a problem." Bumpy stood up. "Because I'm not letting Joe fight in a rigged ring. You've got 24 hours to figure it out." Bumpy walked out, left Norris sitting at his desk, sweating. September 17th, 1951, 8 p.m. Frankie Carbo sat in a restaurant in Little Italy, eating pasta, surrounded by bodyguards.
Bumpy Johnson walked in with Junie Bird and Willie Jackson.
The restaurant went quiet. Carbo looked up, saw Bumpy, smiled. "Bumpy Johnson, in my neighborhood. You've got balls, or a death wish." Bumpy sat down across from him. "We need to talk about Joe Louis." "I don't know any Joe Louis." "Yes, you do, and you're going to leave him alone." Carbo laughed. "Or what?" "Or I expose every fight you've fixed in the last 10 years, every judge you've bribed, every ref you've paid off." Carbo's smile disappeared. "You can't prove anything." "I don't need to prove it. I just need to say it, loudly, publicly, and let the FBI investigate. They'd love an excuse to come after you, Frankie. You think I'm scared of you. I think you're smart enough to pick your battles. Joe Louis is not your battle."
Why do you care so much about some washed-up boxer? Because he's not just some boxer. He's a symbol.
And when you destroy symbols, people notice.
People get angry, and angry people are dangerous. Carbo leaned forward. You threatening me? I'm informing you. Joe Louis fights clean. Fair refs, fair judges, no interference. And in return, I don't expose you. I don't start a war, and you live to fix fights another day. Carbo thought about it, then nodded. Fine, Louis fights clean, but when he loses, and he will lose, you stay out of it. Deal. They shook hands. Carbo smiled. You know, Bumpy, you're the only black man in America who could walk into my restaurant and walk out alive. Bumpy stood up. That's because I'm the only black man in America you're actually scared of. September 20th, 1951. Joe Louis' training camp.
Pompton Lakes, New Jersey. Joe was hitting the heavy bag when Bumpy arrived.
His punches were slower than they used to be. His footwork was heavy. He looked every bit of his 37 years. Sugar Ray Robinson, Joe's best friend and sparring partner, saw Bumpy first. Mr. Johnson, what are you doing here? Came to check on the champ. Joe stopped punching, walked over, wiping sweat from his face. Bumpy, you got news? I got you a new contract. 60-40 split, no slave clauses. Joe's eyes widened. How? Let's just say I had a conversation with Jim Norris and Frankie Carbo. What kind of conversation? The kind where I reminded them that you're a legend and they're parasites. Joe laughed. First genuine laugh Bumpy had heard from him. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You still have to win the fight. Joe's face fell.
That's the problem. I don't know if I can. What do you mean? Bumpy, I'm old, I'm slow, I've taken too many punches. Marciano's young, hungry, strong.
I'm fighting Father Time, and I'm losing. Then don't fight Father Time. Fight smart. Joe shook his head. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. You're Joe Louis. You've fought bigger, faster, stronger. You've always found a way to win. Not this time. This time feels different. Because you're scared. Joe looked at Bumpy, offended. I'm not scared. Yes, you are. You're scared of being embarrassed, scared of people seeing you lose, scared that this fight will erase your legacy. Joe said nothing, because Bumpy was right. Listen to me, Joe. Bumpy put a hand on his shoulder. Winning this fight doesn't define you. You've already proven everything. 25 title defenses, avenged your only loss, served your country. You're a legend.
Nobody can take that away. Then why fight? Because you need the money.
And because you deserve to go out on your terms, not theirs, not the mob's, not the IRS's, yours. So train, fight, and win or lose, hold your head high. Joe nodded slowly. You really think I can win? I think if anyone can, it's you. September 26th, 1951, 10 p.m., Madison Square Garden. 20,000 people packed the arena. The air was electric. This was it. Joe Louis's last stand. In the locker room, Joe wrapped his hands. His team surrounded him. Manny Seaman, his trainer, Sugar Ray, his cornerman, and standing in the back, watching quietly, Bumpy Johnson. Joe looked at Bumpy. You staying for the fight? Wouldn't miss it. Joe smiled. Thanks for everything, Bumpy. Win or lose, you gave me a fair shot. That's all I ever wanted.
That's all you ever deserved. The call came. It was time. Joe Louis stood up. Bumpy walked over. One more thing? What? Remember who you are. You're not just fighting for money. You're fighting for every kid who looked up to you, every black man who saw hope in your fists, every person who believed in you when the world said you couldn't. That's worth more than any purse. Joe's eyes watered. Thank you. Now go show them why you're the greatest. Joe Louis walked out of that locker room, Down the tunnel, into the arena. 20,000 people roared, some cheering, some hoping, all watching history. In the opposite corner, Rocky Marciano, 27 years old, undefeated, hungry, the future. But tonight, he had to face the past. The bell rang.
September 26, 1951, 10:47 p.m. Round 1. Joe Louis came out strong. His jab was sharp. His footwork was clean. For 3 minutes, he looked like the old Joe Louis, the legend, the brown bomber. He connected with 2 clean shots to Marciano's head. The crowd exploded. Maybe, just maybe. The bell rang. Joe returned to his corner, breathing hard, harder than he should be after 1 round. Manny Seaman wiped his face. "You're doing great, champ. Keep that jab working." Joe nodded. But Bumpy, watching from ringside, saw the truth. Joe was already tired. 1 round, and he was already fading. This was going to be bad. Round 2. Marciano came forward like a tank, relentless, throwing bombs. Joe tried to move, tried to use his experience.
But his legs weren't listening. His reflexes were half a second too slow. Marciano landed a right hand. Joe stumbled, caught himself on the ropes. The crowd gasped. Joe recovered, fired back, landed a combination, but the power wasn't there. Marciano smiled. He could feel it. Joe Louis was human. Rounds 3 through 7 were a war. Joe fought with everything he had: pride, desperation, legacy. He landed shots that would have knocked out most men, but Marciano kept coming, kept pressing, kept throwing. By round 7, Joe's left eye was swelling shut. His legs were rubber. His corner begged him to quit. "Joe," Manny Seaman said between rounds, "you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do. You're getting hurt. I've been hurt before. Not like this." Joe looked at Bumpy through the ropes. Bumpy's face was stone.
But his eyes said everything. This is your choice. Nobody can make it for you. Joe turned back to Manny. 1 more round. Let me have 1 more round.
Round 8, 10:58 p.m. Marciano came out throwing everything. Joe tried to cover up, tried to survive, but Marciano was too young, too strong, too hungry. A right hand caught Joe clean. His knees buckled. He fell against the ropes. The ropes held him up, barely. Marciano loaded up for the finish, threw a massive right hand. Joe Louis, the greatest heavyweight champion in history, went down. The crowd went silent. 20,000 people, dead silent. The referee started counting. 1, 2, 3. Joe Louis tried to get up. His body wouldn't respond. 4, 5, 6. In Joe's corner, Sugar Ray Robinson was crying. In the audience, grown men wept. This was their hero, their symbol, falling. 7, 8. Joe got to 1 knee.
The referee looked at him, looked at his eyes, saw nothing left. 9, 10. It was over. Joe Louis had lost. His last fight, his last chance, gone. Rocky Marciano raised his arms in victory, but even he looked sad, because beating Joe Louis wasn't a triumph, it was a tragedy. Bumpy climbed into the ring, pushed through the crowd, got to Joe. Joe was sitting on the stool, blood on his face, tears mixing with blood. "I lost," Joe whispered. "I know. I let everyone down." "No, you didn't. You fought. That's all anyone can ask." "I needed to win. I needed the money." Bumpy knelt down, looked Joe in the eyes. "The money's handled." "What?" "I handled it, while you were training." Joe stared at him, confused. "How?" Bumpy helped Joe stand. "Let's get you to the locker room. I'll explain everything."
In the locker room, after the doctors checked Joe, after the reporters left, after everyone cleared out except Bumpy, Junie, and Mamie, Bumpy explained, "I knew you might lose, no offense."
None taken. So I made arrangements. I went to every major business owner in Harlem, every church, every numbers banker, everyone who ever benefited from your legacy, and I told them Joe Louis needs help, and they all contributed. Joe's eyes widened. "How much?"
Enough to clear your IRS debt. All of it. Joe stood up, nearly collapsed. Bumpy caught him. You're lying. I don't lie. Check your bank account tomorrow. $500,000, paid in full. But how? We took up a collection. Call it the Joe Louis Fund. Contributions from everyone whose life you touched. You gave us hope, Joe. We're just returning the favor. Joe Louis, the brown bomber, the champion, the legend, broke down crying, not from losing the fight.
From winning something bigger. Respect, loyalty, love. September 27th, 1951, 9 a.m. The newspapers were brutal. Louis falls in 8th round.
The end of an era. Brown bomber knocked out by reality. But buried in the sports section of the Amsterdam News, Harlem's paper, was a different headline. Harlem saves Joe Louis. Community raises $500K to clear champion's debt. The article explained everything. How Bumpy Johnson had organized the fundraiser. How over 3,000 people contributed, from rich businessmen donating thousands to poor families donating pennies. How Harlem had refused to let their hero fall. By noon, the story had spread across America. By evening, it was national news. Joe Louis appeared on the radio. His voice was humble, grateful. I lost the fight last night, but I won something more important. I learned that the people I fought for, they fought for me.
I learned that legacy isn't about winning. It's about how you treat people. And I learned that Harlem, my home, my family, will never let me fall.
Thank you to everyone who contributed, to Bumpy Johnson who organized it. Thank you for reminding me what real victory looks like. October 1951, Joe Louis paid off his IRS debt in full. He retired from boxing officially. No more comebacks, no more desperate fights. He was free. Over the next 2 decades, Joe became a greeter at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. He met fans, signed autographs, lived simply but with dignity. He never forgot what Bumpy did. In 1968, when Bumpy Johnson died, Joe Louis was at the funeral. He stood at the casket, placed his hand on it, and said, "This man saved my life, not by winning a fight, but by reminding me that I was worth saving. Thank you, Bumpy, for everything." In 1981, Joe Louis died. Over 10,000 people attended his funeral. Ronald Reagan gave the eulogy.
But the most touching moment came when someone read a letter found in Joe's belongings. It was addressed to Bumpy Johnson, dated September 27th, 1951. Dear Bumpy, I don't have the words to thank you properly. You gave me more than money. You gave me my dignity back. I came to you broken, desperate, ready to sell my soul to survive, and you refused to let me. You organized an entire community, thousands of people who barely knew me, and convinced them to save a washed-up boxer who'd lost everything. Why? Not for profit, not for power, but because it was right. That's who you are. That's who you've always been. People call you a criminal, a gangster, a dangerous man. But I know the truth. You're a protector, a leader.
A man who understands that power without compassion is worthless. I lost my last fight, but I won my freedom, and I owe that to you. If I can ever repay this debt, I will. Until then, know that Joe Louis will never forget Bumpy Johnson. With eternal gratitude, Joe Louis, September 26, 1951. Joe Louis lost his last fight, but what happened after became the story. Not the knockout, not the defeat, but the community that refused to let their hero fall. Bumpy Johnson didn't save Joe Louis alone. He mobilized Harlem. 3,000 people, from ministers to bartenders, from teachers to numbers runners, everyone contributed what they could, because Joe Louis had given them hope, and hope is worth saving. The newspapers called it the greatest fundraiser in Harlem's history, but it was more than that. It was proof that when you fight for your people fight for you. Joe Louis spent his career knocking down barriers, breaking racial stereotypes, proving that black excellence was undeniable. And when he fell, Harlem picked him up. That's the real story.
not the 8-round knockout, but the community that said, "Not today, not our champion."
Years later, a young boxer named Muhammad Ali met Bumpy Johnson. Ali asked him about the Joe Louis story. "Is it true you saved Joe Louis?" Bumpy shook his head. "I didn't save him. Harlem saved him. I just organized it." "Why? Why go through all that trouble for one man?" "Because symbols matter. Joe Louis wasn't just a boxer. He was proof that we could be great, that we could be champions, that we deserved respect. If we let the world destroy him, we'd be saying that our heroes are disposable, that our legends don't matter. I couldn't let that happen." Ali nodded slowly. "That's why you're the king of Harlem. Not because you're the toughest, because you understand what's worth fighting for." Exactly. Muhammad Ali never forgot that conversation.
Years later, when Ali faced his own battles with the government, when he was stripped of his title for refusing the draft, Harlem remembered Joe Louis, remembered what Bumpy had done.
And they stood by Ali the same way, because that's what communities do. They protect their champions. September 26, 1951, Joe Louis lost a fight, but he won his freedom. And Bumpy Johnson proved that real power isn't about violence. It's about mobilizing people, about turning a community into an army, not for war, but for salvation. If this story of legacy, community, and the power of standing together moved you, hit that subscribe button. Drop a like if you believe that heroes deserve to be protected. Share this with someone who needs to hear about the night Harlem saved the brown bomber. What would you have done if you were in Joe's position? Let me know in the comments. And remember, losing a fight doesn't make you a loser.
Giving up does. Joe Louis never gave up. Bumpy Johnson never let him. And Harlem proved that champions are forever.